Howard Johnson, how are you doing?
Hey, Andy, very good. Thank you.
Today is growing resilient. I'm so excited about this episode today, and I'm looking forward to learn more about these possibilities of growing resilient. So as we go through the pandemic, and we need to understand: is it possible to grow that resilience inside of us? I was reading today, it was a report from the World Economic Forum talking about the pandemials and talking about how a whole generation of young people are completely lost in an age of opportunity. And talking about how the different aspects of the pandemic has created an enormous amount of uncertainty for a whole generation of people that are growing now and have to find their way into the marketplace, and some people already in the marketplace losing their jobs. So there's a lot of shaking up all over the world in terms of geopolitical fault lines, climate risks, the technology, the skill gap in terms of technology, and underrated academia and studies where like it's not, people that are leaving now university, they are not even ready for the marketplace anymore because all the curriculum is already dated. It's an outdated, most of the studies are. So there's a lot of uncertainty right now, and that shakes someone's morale. That brings a lot of anxiety, that brings a lot of uncertainty, a lot of problem, mental health. It's like really low at the moment. So in the midst of all of that and looking into the future, one would ask the question, can I become more resilient? Can I grow the strength? Can I develop that inner power inside of me that's going to push me through and navigate through all these uncertainties that we have in the moment? So today's episode, if you're joining us, it's about that. And I'm so looking forward to hear from you now.
So absolutely, all of that is so true. Like you say, we've had the baby boomers in the past, we've had the millennials, you've had the Generation X, you have the Generation Y. And I believe that every generation of parents, if you ask them the question, so what do you want for your children when they grow up? Do you want them to be happy? Do you want them to be healthy? Most people would say, oh, well, I'd like my kids to be rich. I'd like them to be successful. And I suspect if you ask people nowadays, what do you want for your kids? The answer, I would like them to be more resilient, would come out at the top because of all of what we said, this topsy-turvy, crazy thing that we're going through. And I do believe that resilience can be learned.
So you
can't be taught.
You can teach people and kids.
You can teach, yes. Sorry, let me back up on that because I don't believe you can teach it. Mm-hmm. I believe that you can give kids opportunities to learn to be resilient in the same way that you can create systems in where resilience can be learned. Resilience is a bit like the virus. You can catch the virus, but I can't teach you about a virus because it actually means very little. So if you say, well, can we organize a lecture or a series of lectures on teaching resilience? And I say, well, no, it won't work that way. Not in that way.
So what is the pathway then to increase someone's, or to support someone to increase their resilience?
Yeah.
And how do you support that, or to start my kids, for example, on that journey of resilience? What are the pathways?
So I remember when I was growing up, and it was in primary school and secondary school, you'd sit in a classroom and the teacher would be there scribbling down stuff on a blackboard and say, your job is, or my job was to just copy everything off the blackboard. And then it's like if the teacher was the well of all information and I'm just the empty jug waiting to be filled up. And I have to say I was little bit empty-headed at the time. But the whole point is that sort of model of learning was passive learning. The other way of learning is basically copying what people do. And it's more social sort of learning. So if, for example, you see one of your parents, when you say your dad, when he got angry, what did he do? He might, start shouting. Or you might see your parent just suddenly go quiet and just slam the doors. He walks off. So that the learning is there, is basically copying. And neither of these work well now. In order to grow resilience, you have to have people who are self-motivated, who are self-directed, who can see issues, who can see the world that's turning upside down, and then have enough courage and grit to then do something about it.
So how do you develop that grit and the courage? Is that something that can be also, let's drill down. Can that be taught also? Or how you develop that grit inside of you?
Well, Angela Duckworth talks about it in the way she would teach her kids. And she would say to them, hold on. So you want piano lessons? I'd say, yeah, okay, fine. I'll get you some piano lessons. But here's the deal around the piano lessons. You can have your piano lessons. I will support you in it, okay? But I'll also demand something from you, so that the two pieces of this is one, willing to support somebody, but also demand something in response. So it's not for free. And her demands in terms of piano lessons would be, okay, you can have your piano lessons, but you must go through the 6 months of lessons that you say you're going to have to go through. You must do whatever the teacher says in terms of required practice. And yes, you can stop, but there's an emphasis on saying, here, this is the process you need to go through, and you have to go through it. I don't expect you to become a world famous pianist, but this is the process.
So by what I'm hearing you now saying, there is a direct connection between resilience and consistency.
Yes, there is definitely. Yeah, without a doubt. It is holding people accountable, holding myself accountable for my own actions. So you holding me responsible back and forth, so that the accountability and those actions build our resilience, they build the inner strength.
There is another thing that I've been reading, and I know it might be a little bit divisive. I understand that it could be, depending on which side you are. But it's when parents these days try to remove completely every sort of pressure.
Yeah.
And friction. Without those little frictions and annoyance, you will never have a pearl, for example, right? It's that irritation that you need to leave it there, and the parents trying to completely take that away from the child.
Mm-hmm.
And that does not contribute to building that resilience in latter years, later on, in different stages of life. What is your position about that?
Well, I totally agree. I think, again, if I refer back to the model that Angela Duckworth uses in her book Grit, she says there's supportive parents, and there's one element of support, and the other one is demand. And so the demand bit includes the obstacles. And if you get rid of all the obstacles and all the demands and you're just totally supportive, you'll end up with kids who don't know how to deal with obstacles. If you are not supportive, i.e., and you're not demanding anything of your kids, you're not putting any obstacles in their way, then I think you can end up with kids who are a bit like weeds. You say, right, okay, off you go. Do as you wish. I give up. Those sort of sentences don't build any resilience in your kids.
Mm. And then you ended up with a whole generation. I don't particularly like the denomination. I actually don't like to be putting tags on anyone or any kind of generation, which is derogative. But then we have what people call the snowflake generation, right? That you cannot cope with anything.
Yep.
And I think we have to be a little bit more, let's say, understanding and understand why they are like that. I don't think children are made. I don't think children are the way they are because they chose to be, but they are made or they are trained into becoming an adult like that. It's because something happened in the past or some sort of a behavior that was or stimulus or lack of stimulus or something that or discipline or lack of discipline that caused them to become or behave the way they are today, not able to cope with anything. The very much low coping mechanisms that we're seeing everywhere. I have this experience as a lecturer at a university, and I understand that if we book 2 deadlines on the same week, is almost like there's almost like a mooting. As a you have a problem from the students. They go crazy because they can't cope with 2 deadlines on the same week.
Yeah, and that is symptomatic of a lack of training in terms of how you deal with life's obstacles.
And then you go to the workplace and then you have much more stresses, and that's why you have a whole lot of people with a high percentage of people like taking some sort of medication or obese or going through difficult situations or separation, divorce, or anything that is happening there, and their resilience is very low, and as low as probably ever before. And there are a lot of memes around the internet now on how people cannot cope staying at home now because of the pandemic, but our ancestors went through two wars, right? World wars.
Yep, exactly. And that brings us on to the idea of, okay, so if you talk about adults, because now we're into adults, and let me give you a sort of example of which is very, very current. This year, the Tokyo Olympics is going to happen. And as we know, it's been postponed for about a year now, and the athletes have had huge amounts of disruptions and obstacles. And I think it'd be interesting to see what type of person starts to win the medals. How does the last year affect people's performance? And I suspect the ones who have grown their resilience through these circumstances will prosper. So I know one person who was an Olympic swimmer herself described how she was trained when she was going into her Olympics. She said her coach would throw obstacles in the way of the team. So like once the team arrived for training at 2:00 in the afternoon, and the guy just canceled the practice session. He said, yeah, all of you, just go home. Come back at 10:00. We'll start then. Another time, he got the squad together and he said, here, give me your swimsuits. And when they gave it to him, thinking he just wanted to look at them, he said, right, go away, come back in 3 hours with some alternatives. You're not having your swimsuits. And here, by the way, make sure you all come back with something or nobody will practice. So suddenly this sort of stuff, you're saying, is where you're throwing obstacles in the way, in a safe way. And that's the way in which we can all find ways of growing ourselves. If you can put the obstacles, or somebody can put the obstacles in your way that are safe, then, it will grow you. And just to carry on with that swimming scenario, swimming is a very structured sport. I think you did some swimming when you in your younger days.
Yes, I still do quite a bit.
Yeah.
Take part in a couple of competition.
So you know what it's like.
But I love swimming.
Yeah.
Surfing.
But in some ways, it is very, very structured, isn't it?
Yeah.
You come into the changing room, you do whatever kind of warm up you do, you get on the blocks. When the whistle or the siren goes off, you jump in, swim your 50 meters, touch a wall, turn around and repeat. The water's, constant temperatures, the lights are constant, the environment is controlled. But real life isn't like that, is it? So if you can find obstacles, or somebody puts obstacles in your way that you can overcome, that's how you will build resilience.
Yeah, so, it reminds me of a book I read a few years back called The Obstacle is the Way, the timeless art of turning trials into triumph. I recommend for those people on the journey of resilience by Ryan Holiday.
Yeah.
So there is no good or bad without us. There is only perceptions. There is the event itself and the story we tell ourselves about what it means. So it's inside of our minds and how we perceive things and the importance and the meaning that we attribute to those things that start affecting us, not those things themselves.
Exactly. It's how you process the event. And that's a key bit of learning to be more resilient.
Johnson, let me take you to something else. I want to draw the link between resilience and building resilience and curiosity. And I find it very interesting that you have this idea that curiosity somehow can trigger a positive response in a way that to help people to build that resilience. Can you explain a little bit to us?
Of course. So curiosity is a really underdeveloped skill. It's not taught a lot. In fact, it's when last have you heard somebody, some child come home from school and said, guess what, Dad? I won first prize for asking the most questions. Or, this time I came second for the most interruptions in class. Because that's not what we encourage kids to do. And the thing is, curiosity there is engaging with different or even the same material in a deeper way.
Which is the doorway to creativity, isn't it?
It is.
Curiosity is the doorway to creativity. So in the Prussian assembly line education that we have today, where everybody has to be the same, there's not much space for curiosity. I mean, there are amazing people out there that people want to type and look for to understand a little bit more the link between curiosity, creativity, innovation, and education.
Yeah.
But I'm very interested in the link now with resilience, and I think it's interesting to hear what you're saying, that it also affects how resilient one will be.
Yes, because curiosity, basically, what you're doing in your mind is going around collecting dots. You're collecting pieces of information. And in the same sense of creativity, or in the same sense of problem solving, because creativity is basically problem solving by another name. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to get from here to Brighton, for example. And you think, well, okay, so how many ways can I find out how to get from here to Brighton?
So what are you saying is that curiosity can be developed or nurtured inside a person?
Correct. And the more ways you can find information, the more ways you can find solutions to problems, the less likely you are to be overwhelmed by it. And that's what happens when we all, something awful happens. If something is out of my control and I'm looking for a problem, I've run out of money this week, or I've run out of petrol in the car, or I need to cook something for some guests that are coming, but I have no idea how to do a tikka masala. And so you have to then start to find solutions. But if you can't find the solutions and your brain just freezes up and you start to panic, then it is harder. But if somewhere inside of you think, well, actually, I don't know the answer, but I know the process of finding it. I know where these things can be found, then you're less likely to be overwhelmed. Or if you are overwhelmed, you're more likely to recover yourself quicker. And that's what curiosity does for you. It enables people to be able to solve problems a lot quicker.
And it's like what you say, it's about the difference between school and life. Yep. And about the test. Can you explain a little bit? The school gives lesson first, then the test, and life gives the test exactly. First, and then lesson comes.
Yes, that saying is so true. In school, you say, right, here, Andy, just this is the lesson, or this is the information, just write it down, and at the end of the term, here's the test. You really get stressed off because you're thinking, did I learn all that I need? Can I answer the questions, etc.? So the test stresses you, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Well, it may not stress you because I guess you're more prepared for exams than I would have been. But life is the opposite. Life says, hey, you've lost your job. That's the test of your character. Now what you're going to do about it. Where's the information that you have? Where's the strength of character that you have to deal with the tests that you've already sat? And that's why it's the opposite. So in order to develop the resilience, you need to have a lot of safety in working out how you do it.
So it goes back to what we were saying earlier on in our talk. It's those tests are the obstacles, and the obstacles are in fact the way. So there is no other way. The only way out is through.
Correct. Yeah.
And I have this situation right now with one of my kids who keep wanting the easy way out.
Mm-hmm.
Finding the cheat code, and that's something that comes from even video game, right? So there's always like a hidden door. There's always a cheat code. There's always an easy way out that can take you to a next level. But that's not what life is.
No,
you have to go through. You have to pass through that difficulty, and no pressure, no diamonds, right?
No pressure, no diamonds.
So you got to keep digging. The obstacle is the way. And then what you're saying is that life experiences builds resilience.
Yes.
And if you remove those difficulties from a child growing up, then it'll be harder and harder as the time goes.
Yep, exactly. And so part of this, or a big part of this, is not the obstacle that we face. It's not even the amount of life experience you have, because I put it to you like this, age is inevitable, but building further resilience is optional. Resilience is like maturity. You think, you know what? The older you get, the more mature you get. Well, possibly. There's a guy who said to me, I've had 20 years in this business, and he says, I'm an expert in roofing. I thought, yeah, great. But when you dig down a little further, I realized, well, he had 20 years of experience, but he worked for about 50 different people, and he tried to start up roofing companies, and he failed about 20 times. So really, he didn't have 20 years of experience. He had 1 year of failure, which he repeated for 20 years. So he's never built on the experience. And that's
so is there a process that you say there is a process?
There is a process.
Does everybody evaluate that or figure out what went wrong or right? So what do you think?
Yeah. So I think the number one thing you have to do is just sort out your emotions. You know, whatever it is upsets you, whatever it is pisses you off, whatever makes you sad in the situation.
Or happy, right? I mean,
or happy.
Figure out,
yeah. Exactly.
Because emotion comes from emotion. I mean, Tony Robbins always says that. So you need to bring out the positive emotions that makes you moving forward. Yep. And get rid of all those negative emotions and negative feelings that you have about things that you cannot even control. Because most of the bad feelings is the anticipated fear for something you cannot control.
Yep. And that there is a good point in that the positive can blind you as well. Because sometimes, you know, you think, well, I won that contract. And you think, fantastic, I must be so good at what I do. And then you realize, hold on, well, the next 10 times you repeat the exact same process and you find out you've not won any contracts because the first time was a fluke, but you got so happy about it, you never really got to the next stage of the process, which is analyzing or reflecting on the experience as an observer. Mm-hmm. And so for the one who's won contracts, like if you won 5 contracts in a row, you think, yeah, but you never really worked out, so why did I win those contracts? Was it just that the fact that, you know, my competitors all went bust at the same time, or you know, something else happened that changed the macroeconomics of it? The flip side of it is when something awful happens. You didn't win the contracts, or somebody told you, you know, you're an idiot, or your work's no good, so you're fired. And the thing is, okay, so sort your emotions out and then look at it and say, well, okay, it's important. You don't have to justify it. You don't make any excuses, because you can say, oh yeah, well, the boss is an idiot, or so and so. If that car didn't come in front of me, I wouldn't have been late. So you build all sorts of excuses and justifications in.
I think it's very interesting because Marcus Aurelius talks about that soulful rationality that you have to develop inside of you in terms of soul searching and self-awareness, self-reliance, and self-determination, and look inside and ask questions about yourself and evaluate your life.
Yep. And that's so important, is the evaluation as a neutral observer. So it's not like saying, hey, Johnson, I need you to look at what you did wrong. Mm-hmm. No, I would like you to look at the situation, okay, and tell me about it. Describe it to me.
Okay. And how important is flexibility or adaptability in this in this process that you develop? You're talking about.
That's another key element of growing resilience, because if you know how you tend to react, if you've done any of the sort of personality tests that are out there, be it the Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram, then you get a sense of how you normally react to situations. And that's the first part of it. The second part of it is can you be flexible? Or do you think, oh yeah, well, I'm an introvert, so I will always behave as an introvert. Or I'm an extrovert, I will just continue to go to parties and talk loudly. But unless you first know how you are normally and then be able to flex. Let me give you an example. Maslow of Maslow's hierarchy was a great teacher. And once he was teaching in an American city, and there were a group of people who just behaved very differently. They responded to people in authority who showed strength, who showed, I'm the boss kind of thing, and they're used to that sort of culture. Whereas Maslow's normal wasn't in that sense. But he realized if he went and he taught like the way he normally would teach, these guys would walk all over him and say, these teachers, they don't know what they are. They're just soft. What's the point of listening to them? So straight away, he came down and hammered them with, this is the way it's done. Authority, authority, authority. And only then can he come back and revert back to how his norm was. Mm. So being able to flex is important, because if he couldn't flex and that continued to happen, he said, well, it's no point teaching these useless students. And so he would have walked away from teaching opportunities as well as learning from himself. So that's where knowing yourself, knowing your styles, is important, and then being able to flex to accommodate a different context.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think those who are watching us now, I'm speaking to Johnson now, and it's great. These series are developing, and we're putting into a book. You'll be able to download soon this book from our website. And it's great that please do share this episode with someone that you know that it needs to hear that and be motivated, and also to develop the self-discipline, the self-determination to move and push things forward in their lives. The idea in our community is to get people unstuck, to get people moving. Everybody can do that. Nobody's better than anybody, and we're all here in that journey. I think we are going to be talking to a very interesting person who's part of this movement, part of our community, also Kathleen Peterson, and I think interviewing her tomorrow, correct?
Yes, yep.
She comes from that, she's an expert in temperament. I mean, I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, so Kathleen has done a lot of work with NGOs. She's done a lot of work with individuals as well as corporate, looking at exactly what we're talking about. She uses this model of temperament and seeing how it fits into different contexts. So to either build resilience, or the flip side of it is when you cross into burnout. And that's another topic that we'll be covering at a later point. So at some point, do check out what she has to say. It'll be good.
No, I'm looking forward to it. Take us through Nietzsche. What is that important to you?
So Friedrich Nietzsche once said, he made the statement, that which doesn't kill us will make us stronger. And I used to think, that's a little bit tough because it's extreme, but I think there's a grain of truth in there that if the obstacles that we face, the trials that we face, they can be managed, and we have to again come back to the process of looking and seeing how it is that we've dealt with this event. What is it that makes us work with it in a non-helpful way? It's not effective.
I also love that he said, you must have a little chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is about who we are here in this community, in this movement that we are birthing now. It's about that momentum. It's not about fast. It's not about how fast you can go, how strong you can be, but how can you embrace that chaos inside of us and say, hey, let's dance.
Yep. very true. So I know you do as I do when you go running sometimes. You know, a lot of the times people focus on how fast or rhythm, how many beats per minute your music is running at, etc., the pace, the cadence, all that sort of stuff, and we can focus on the technical bit.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it is like, okay, well, I need to do some inner work inside myself to say, why am I doing what am I doing? You know, how does this thing relate to the rest of my life? Because the whole point of what we talk about in momentum is, yeah, you are made up of body, soul, and spirit, body, mind, and spirit. So everything is connected. And sometimes it's the things that we do, the physical things that we do, help us to reflect on the mental bit. So you need to work on the internal as well as just the external, because they are connected.
And tell me how important it is to be able to laugh. Why laughing is important to build resilience?
Well, even just thinking about it makes you laugh, doesn't it? And one of the pieces of research that they have found out is that laughter helps in several ways. One is it helps learning. If you can laugh while you're learning, you will retain information more because it goes in further. And the other bit that's connected to resilience, and I'll give you an example of this. When I used to work in the hospital, we had a surgeon once, and he was busy operating on a patient. And there's something called a diathermy, which is basically passing an electric current through a blood vessel to stop it bleeding. And somebody had misconnected a part of the equipment. And this guy got this almighty shock. So he was standing here in front of the patient. Next thing you know, he was 6 feet behind and he hit that wall there. And as he sat down, everybody started to laugh. And you look at it and you think, you guys crazy. That man could have been killed. But he started to laugh as well. And the point of the laughter bit is that it releases the tension of stuff that goes on. Because, if at present there's so much stuff going on that's difficult. And unless you can release the tension of it, the resilience piece doesn't come up. The stress just builds and builds and builds. We see that in the movies as well. I don't know if you were around when MASH was being shown on telly.
Sorry, Johnson, I don't remember MASH.
Maybe it was, it wasn't in your time era, but MASH was about...
I'm joking. I remember of it, but I don't think I've ever seen it.
Yeah, so there's a guy called Hawkeye there who used to crack all these silly jokes. And him and his partner would be joking and laughing as they're operating on people or they're dealing with stuff that's happened. And so you have to be able to laugh at things. And if you can laugh at yourself, which is the other piece on this, it's not just laughing at the situation, but laughing. And I can tell you, you know what? I remember when I put water in this syringe or something like that, and it didn't work. And then I think, oh, sugars, I made a mistake. And so it's not true confessions kind of thing. It's not Jerry Springer, but in a controlled way. When we did our morbidity, mortality meetings and checked out, so who made what mistakes? And somebody put their hands up and laughed and said, yeah, that happened. And we all learn from that mistake.
I believe that is an element for me that is very important to helping me to build resilience. And I use that a lot. which is gratitude.
Yes, gratitude is huge.
Gratitude for me is probably one of the number one things in my life that helps me to build resilience. When I express that thankfulness for everything in my life, it's almost like an invisible force that builds me up and picks me up and takes me forward. I'm grateful for the weather, no matter how it's looking outside, or for, for difficulties at work, or for some challenging relationships. And you're grateful for the fact that you are alive and you have an amazing place to live. And then, you have what you have, and you have more than you need. And you start looking at things in nature and things around you and amazing people that you have. And then you develop that gratitude that builds you up.
It certainly does.
Makes you stronger.
It certainly does. And I think connected to that is when you start to share good news.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes, especially nowadays, when I talk to my friends and I think, have you heard, oh, so-and-so's sick, or so-and-so's this has happened and that's happened. And we spend a lot of time talking about bad news. And it's very easy to talk about. You don't have to go far to find bad news. But again, the research has shown that when we share good news, it lightens, it builds, it strengthens, it encourages. And so more and more I'm thinking, hey, Andy, tell me, what good news do you know? And then I go quiet. I don't have any good news. I don't know any good. Nothing's happened recently because it's so hard to think about it. But say, okay, well, for me, share somebody else's good news. Hey, my mate Paul Murphy, he's done some fantastic paintings there. He's done 4 paintings and he's self-taught. And he's got 2 commissions.
Paul Murphy from the band?
Yeah, the Paul Murphy band.
Now. Come on, Paul. I need to go to Harrogate and get some of the paintings now. We need some paintings here in my new flat. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have to tell you, it's not all good.
I have to commission that from Paul.
Yeah, well, that's the other good news that he got. Somebody said to him, oh, I like that painting you did. How much do you want for it? Typical Paul would say, I don't know. How much do you want to give me?
Yeah, he's such a blessed, he's a very humble guy, and he's such a blessing every time I meet him.
Yeah, and the guy said to his friends, I'll give you 200 quid for it. I said, wow, thank you.
We need to bring him in a program, Johnson. We need to interview him. And I think what he does with the band and everything, such an amazing Yorkshire guy.
He is fantastic. Soul of the earth.
Johnson, it's nice talking to you today. Episode 5, guys. We are now on Spotify. We are on the major podcast platforms. And I'm really excited about what we are developing right now and the feedback that you're giving us. And please do share, subscribe to our channels. Our portal is coming soon also. We're developing it now. And Johnson, is such a great journey with you. Thank you so much one more time. And I'm looking forward to the interviews with Marcus that we're going to upload soon. And also next week, we're going to be uploading Catherine on burnout. So Marcus is on OKRs and purpose, right?
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Johnson.
Okay. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
See you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.